sense of reality is more fragile than you would expect. The study of the natural world grants us a stable foothold in our understanding of the phenomena that surround us. But it does not take much to shake that stability to its very foundations. Serpents that coil around mountains, diseases that give birth to dark wyverns, islands that swallow trespassers. The world is full of the unreal. A functional framework of the world's natural laws is obviously necessary to maintain, but any monster scholar will tell you that rigidity of the mind does not survive exposure to the true variety and sometimes absurdity of monster kind. One surprisingly easy way to test one's tolerance for the inexplicable can be found in the Great Desert. This arid region is sometimes referred to as the Sea of Sand, a title that is a lot more literal than one might think. The fine sand on the upper layers of the desert does indeed act like a liquid, sucking in those who try to stand on it as if they had plunged into water. Such a unique environment breeds unique species. Many creatures that live in the Great Desert have adapted to swimming through sand effortlessly, while developing ways to breathe through such a rough medium. And as one watches the wave-like dunes of the sand sea, one might spot a great mass, a mountain given life. This is the unbelievable elder dragon species found here in the Great Sand Sea, the Mohran. Belonging to the suborder of the ridge dragons, colloquially called Mohran dragons, the Mohran is one of the most enormous monsters ever observed at over 100 meters in length. The body of the dragon is long and thick, with degenerated hind limbs but well-developed front limbs. A long tail trails behind the behemoth, and the back displays the eponymous ridge that the dragon's suborder is named for. And most notably, an enormous pair of tusks protrude from the mouth, forming two colossal spears at the front of the creature. The scale armor of the dragon, which is naturally a bright blue color, appears brown and beige from untold years of sand sticking to it like a royal garment. How does one even begin to understand a creature like the Mohran? In the Hunter's Guild's case, by dragging the monster into reality and examining it as a being of flesh and blood. Initial research focused on the Mohran's ability to exist in the Sand Sea in the first place. Despite spending much of its time under the surface, the Mohran does in fact possess lungs, and it must breach regularly to take a breath. While submerged, the Mohran swallows massive amounts of sand with its open maw, aiming to feed on organic material within it. This behavior puzzled the scribes of the Royal Academy for some time. How could the sand of the Great Desert possibly contain enough edible material to sustain a creature of this size? It is now believed that the Great Desert was once an ocean, and that the sand within it is permeated by fossilized organic material left behind by ancient coral reefs. Over the eons, specialized bacteria that feed on that material seem to have developed, congregating in massive organic layers in the depths of the sand sea. The Mohran, in turn, appears to feed on these bacterial colonies. This is an extremely valuable food source that the dragon has essentially exclusive access to, and it has evolved to maximize its feeding ability. The mouth and esophagus of the Gen Mohran splits into two chambers through the use of a filter system. One side takes in food, the other the copious amounts of sand that it swallows, sending it to a dorsal blowhole to be expelled later. And so, the majestic Gen Mohran swims through the sand sea, a giant that thrives in a coarse ocean that repels all others. But the most unusual feature of this dragon is actually not its size, nor its physiology, nor even its habitat. Rather, the Gen Mohran stands out due to its unique relationship with humans. Elder dragons are generally feared for their immense power, but there is one place where the Gen Mohran is perhaps the most popular monster in the world. Loklak City, the jewel of the desert. There are two reasons for this. For one, the Gen Mohran is a living mine, with ores and gems emerging all over its carapace, especially on the back. While the mechanism behind this is only poorly understood, it is believed that the shell of the Gen Mohran is made up of special materials that allow for the growth of ore veins. Subsequently, the constant exposure to filtered sand causes the shell to accumulate ore particulates onto those materials, until full veins form over the course of the dragon's long life. The second reason is that unlike with most other elder dragons, the Gen Mohran's behavior is extremely predictable. These behemoths go through a cycle in which they hibernate at the bottom of the sand sea for some time, before emerging to breathe and feed. The emergence of a Gen Mohran from its slumber announces itself through various means. Delecs, a species of sand-swimming Piscine wyvern, begin appearing in droves as they feel the arrival of the Desert King. Eager to feed on the scraps of organic material, the giant sweeps up into the air and surface. Additionally, as the Gen begins its ascent and arrives at the surface, the sand expelled from its blowhole is catapulted into the sky, where it is caught by winds that are amplified by the blowhole's ejective force. In short order, this triggers the atmospheric chain reaction that kickstarts the sandstorm season. So the Gen is a massive, potentially endless source of ore that arrives with predictable regularity. It certainly is no wonder then that the people of Loklak have built their society around this beast. Since ancient times, the beginning of the sandstorm season heralds the arrival of the Mohran festival, a frenzied celebration in which the brave men and women of Loklak board sand ships and race alongside the Great Ridge Dragon. Their goal during this festival is to jump onto the back of the Colossus and mine its various ores and gems to bring back to the city. It is a daring, borderline insane tradition. And it is also the main reason why we know as much about the Gen Mohran as we do. Loklak dragon chasers are known for the meticulous notes they take, which are sometimes copied onto pamphlets distributed within Loklak ahead of the festival to inform prospective participants where the best materials can be found. This is how, for example, it was found that the Gen Mohran grows two different types of ore: accumulated veins from particulates and special crystals that emerge near the mouth as the beast's saliva solidifies over the eons. But the greatest treasures of the Sand King can be found at the most dangerous spot: the sporadically erupting blowhole, at the edge of which one can find the brilliant Earth Dragon Gem. And so, the Mohran Festival of Loklak stands as one of the most exhilarating and unusual connections between humanity and dragonkind. A fantastical event in which those who brave the giant may walk away with untold riches. As the history of Loklak has been so closely tied to the Gen Mohran, the people of the desert have found other ways to benefit from the Great Ridge Dragon. By provoking and guiding the Gen Mohran, ancient architects used to trick it into crashing into bedrock formations at the edges of the sand sea, creating new trade routes and terraforming the area that would become Loklak City. However, not everyone sees a force of bounty and prosperity in the Gen Mohran. While its most famous population is in the Great Desert, this dragon species also appears in the Far East, where it has a very different reputation. In the distant past, a warrior clad in armor made from the body of a Gen Mohran ended a series of bloody civil wars through unspeakable power and ferocity. Ever since then, the Gen Mohran has been considered a god of war in the East, with its acolytes often being seen as religious warmongers. Grasping the true nature of the Gen Mohran remains challenging. Even with the comparative abundance of data, much still remains unknown about this dragon. One of the more elusive aspects of the Gen Mohran occurs ever so often, in times when the Mohran festival continues into the dark of night. There, under the desert moon, one may rarely witness the emergence of a different creature, a Gen Mohran clad in a ghostly glow. This is the mysterious Hallowed Gen Mohran. Believed to be a subspecies of Gen Mohran, the Hallowed Gen Mohran can be distinguished by the purple ore covering its ridge and its darker shell armor, which displays more of the species' natural blue carapace. Researching this subspecies beyond such crude superficialities has proven extremely difficult due to its elusiveness. The Hallowed Gen Mohran only ever surfaces at night, and usually retreats back into the sandy depths almost immediately upon taking a breath. The only insights that we have into this mysterious creature have come from the ingenuity and skill of the Loklak dragon chasers. Over the course of many observations, they noticed that for some unknown reason, the Hallowed Gen Mohran stays on the surface for much longer during a full moon, and so they took full advantage of those rare opportunities to gather as much information as possible. The most crucial discovery made by the dragon chasers was that the Hallowed Gen Mohran possesses a wider chest, and thus a greater lung capacity than the standard species. This implies that the Hallowed Gen Mohran can dive deeper into the sand sea than its cousin. It is believed that the bottom layers of the sand sea are rich in quartz, and it has been proposed that the visual differences between the common species and the Hallowed Gen Mohran come about due to the latter's ingestion of the sedimentary quartz. This hypothesis is supported by the discovery that the purple mineral on the back of this subspecies is in fact a quartz compound, polished from the constant exposure to rough sands into a perfect kind of crystal called ghostly quartz. Beyond this, however, very little is currently known about the Hallowed Gen Mohran, as research on it can only progress alongside its rare appearances. But even so, the Mohran dragons represent a truly magnificent example of how humanity can coexist with giant monsters. This is of course true of the Gen Mohran, but it is also true of its closest living relative, the second extant Mohran species. In a different region of the Great Desert, there is in fact another kind of giant sand dragon that also commands the love and adoration of a human settlement: the Daren Mohran. Superficially, it looks quite unlike the Gen Mohran. Daren Mohran sports a deep red and brown body with a spiked ridge on its back, and its enormous single spiral horn sits on the upper jaw of a truly gigantic mouth. But, just like the Gen, the Daren Mohran also swims through sand. It also feeds on organic material by swallowing its surroundings, and it also grows ores on its body. So, what exactly caused this dragon to develop so differently from the Gen Mohran? Luckily, the Daren Mohran is also regularly investigated by a very dedicated group. All Daren sightings are purview of the Hunters Guild office of Val Habar, a merchant town that has a long history with this creature. Just as was the case with the Gen, the Daren Mohran's predictable behavior and valuable materials attracted daring adventurers to it. In the case of the Daren, this resulted in countless caravans following the dragon around to mine its ores, and eventually, these caravans united into an enormous conglomerate, which is now known as the town of Val Habar. Due to this history, we have some insight into the Daren's unique physiology. The crucial adaptation that separates the Daren Mohran from its relative is its massive spiral horn. This structure is used to penetrate the bedrock of the sand sea and dive into the layers that even the Gen Mohran cannot touch. As a result, the Daren Mohran ingests ores and minerals that neither the Gen Mohran nor its subspecies have access to, thus profoundly altering the composition of the shell. For example, the red coloration of the body seems to derive from a richness of oxidized metals, which fuse with the body and form a bedrock-like layer on the Daren Mohran. But the most valuable material found on this dragon is the one named after it, the Daren Stone, a gem of unimaginable value that many hunters risk life and limb for. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, a very special thank you to everyone who supports the channel financially, be it on Patreon or through YouTube channel memberships. I would like to give a very special thank you to Admiral Frost, Alistair in Wonderland, Argent, Artur Centeno, Autumns, Big Mac, Black Ace 202, B, Bruggy, Carcerion, Chocolate Coat, Claire Miboon, Coomer Noob, Darkest, Destro, Dracovane, Dragonlord, Dissy, Echo But Evil, Ethan Toombs, Everkey, Theopuz, Golden Sushi X, Grüße an Mama, Harpier, Hellbug Hunter, Hutsan, I'm Just Happy to Be Here, Iron Camel, It's Robin Now, Jack of All Shades, Jacob Coleman, Joey Tribby 58, Jonathan Ginsberg, Magenta, Carl the Crab, Kiefer XL21, Kogath, L3 Lazarus, Lieferdienst, Logan Bilodeau, Lone Strider, Lord Asmodeus, Low Motion Algae, Lufish, M1 Have One Too, Macaroni Leviathan, Makamawi, Makoto 2, Matt Hat 124, Meta Defiance, Mr. Pyramid, Molly Mockery, My Name Gone, Nico Soleil, Nils Schlatter, Noah Schantz, Oakwood Tree, Paige Gandalf Soda, Pancake Poppy, Person 212, Precum King, Punonym, Quali, Quixotic Metroid 906, Rambling Robin, Regal Eagle, Resident Neko Arc, Wronger 97, Rose, Right Thundi, Ryan Hook, Skiba, Shebo, Silly Wizard 97, Siragon, Sir Newt, Solimer, Soruka, Sparkdrake, Tacti Wolf, The Alchemist, The Iciest Man Alive, The Dollarfish, 3 Palicos in a Trench Coat, Tigrex Chew Toy, Tipped Over, Toby Kadachi's OnlyFan, Hunk with Good Puss, Uthduna is an Octopus, Vulgar Beast, Volturix, Wandering Soul, Wolf of Time, Wokwani, Zafi, Hino Garcia, Jon H.V. Augenson, and Kuro Neko. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.